Hey guys. I just want to preface this by saying that I feel like sometimes I feel a bit awkward using my personal experiences in my podcasts because I don't know why, because it's literally my podcast, like I can talk about what I want, but I feel like I don't know, like I don't want that like perception of like, you know, that whole Taylor Swift vibe where everyone's like, oh, she just uses like her breakups to talk about like make music or whatever, and it gives her a bad rap. Like, I don't know, I feel like I kind of don't want that, but I don't know if that's like internalized misogyny at all, because men do it all the time and get praised. But this podcast is going to be very heavily based on like what's going on in my life at the minute, and like I don't know, I always feel like I maybe worry about coming off as a bit conceited or a bit like loving to talk about myself, but it's more like, I think for me, like I try to use the experiences I have to talk about things in like an objective way. It may not always pay off, but that is usually the goal. But I don't know how objective this episode is going to be. So if you don't like subjective topics and you don't care about what's going on in my life, this probably isn't the episode for you. So, I recently went through a really, really big trauma, like incredibly difficult time in my life. My mum like almost died basically, and she's alive and she's fine, but she's still like recovering. And I think it's funny because I've had a few near-death experiences myself. I think I've had 3. And it's funny because every time they've happened to me, I've never really cared. Like, they've obviously shaped who I am and changed my philosophy and changed, you know, the way that I view the world and safety and taking precautions. And, like, you know, people probably think I'm a bit of, like, a paranoid person. But I think statistically, like, I'm due a bit of a fucking break. Like, I don't know. Like, for me, I feel like death is, like, just, like, chasing me around. Like, I don't know. I think in the last 4 years, I've had 3 near-death experiences and my mum's almost died. So, like, I don't know. I just feel like statistically that is not, you know, most people's experience. But yeah, so I feel like for me, like, I have a interesting relationship with death, and obviously being, like, I don't know, spiritually inclined, I guess. I'm not coming on here to, like, talk about my spirituality, really, but having, you know, one foot in that side of things anyway, these things are always, like, I think heightened for me in a way that maybe, I don't know, like, I feel like death is very, like, close by a lot of the time. And I think it's interesting because, like I was saying, like, when these things happen to me, like, it just is what it is. But then when these things happen to someone that you care about, especially, like, oh, for those of you that don't know, like, I grew up solely with my mum. She's, like, the best person in the world. Like, my mum is also a mum to a lot of my friends who don't have great relationships with their parents, and she's, like, basically just, like, the best parent on the planet. I know everyone says that if they have a good relationship with their parents, but, like, my mum's, like, really, like, a real good parent. So obviously that's, like, really traumatizing, and going through that was, like, really shit. And it's funny because I feel like whenever these situations happen, something serious, you know, where, like, potential, like, loss of life is on the cards, I always feel like it kind of, like, shakes me back into a new perspective. And as much as, like, I'm definitely, like, not mentally stable at the minute, and I can, like, easily identify that, I feel incredibly grounded. Like, I don't know if that's, like, contradicting itself, but, you know, I think things can contradict each other and exist at the same time, as Miley Cyrus once said. But yeah, no, I feel like very grounded. It's funny because I was thinking about all the things that I was worrying about before this accident happened. It was very sudden, like there was an accident and it was like, you know, hospital mission, and then it was like complications, and then it was, you know, so it was like a very stark thing, you know. It wasn't like a cancer type thing where it's like you get a diagnosis and then there's like months of testing and, you know, potential chemo and like things like that. It wasn't nothing like that. So, you know, it was sudden. And I feel like when things are sudden, it's like a rapid change of life experience, you know? Like, I'm not working and, like, I have to look after my mum and, like, you know, we were also in a foreign country when this happened. So that was, like, a whole nother ball game. Like, we were, like, in Egypt. Like, what the fuck are we going to do? Like, you know, so there was, like, a lot of things that, like, had to be considered, which kind of meant the rest of my life got put on pause for, like, 5 or 6 days. And coming back to it, we managed to fly home. Everything was okay. Like, you know, it's all okay now-ish. And coming back to thinking about the things that I was thinking about before that were, like, the biggest problems in my life, I just think how silly they were. And, like, I'm not trying to invalidate myself, because I do believe that it's a frame of reference thing, you know. If you are upset about something, you are allowed to be upset about something and, like, feel that kind of way. You don't have to justify it and think, oh, you know, well, it's not a big deal to them or whatever. Like, you're allowed to be upset about these things that I was upset about. Like, they're valid. Like, they're so completely valid. But it's funny that coming out of this incident, all I can think about is, like, you know, well, at least I'm alive. At least my mum's alive. Like, at least those people that I was so angry at are alive. Like, at least, you know, that person that did that thing that really hurt me is alive and healthy and can walk. And, like, it's weird because, and if I cry on this podcast, I'm really sorry. Like, I know that's, like, not really my style, and I try and be as, like, I don't know what the word is, like, logical as possible. But this is, you know, obviously, like, a sensitive time for me. But it's funny because I remember my first near-death experience when I hit my head. It's, like, the thing that, like, kick-started, like, my whole change of persona, basically. I remember I got in an argument with my friend that night. She was, like, my best friend at the time. And I literally can't even tell you what we argued about. Something stupid. And I remember when I woke up, actually, to be fair, I was on a lot of drugs when I woke up. Like, from the hospital, not, like, recreational. Yeah, when I woke up, I was like, fuck. Is she still mad at me? Like, you know, like, what? I don't, like, are we okay? Like, what's going on? And she was just like, oh my God, like, I'm so glad you're okay. You know, like, how anyone would. And I just think it's interesting, like, how when accidents happen, all these things are forgotten. Obviously, like, unless it's, like, you know, you've been cheated on and, like, it's still there. Like, those things still happen and they're still there. But, like, I think for a lot of stuff that's, like, you know, somewhat, you know, the upset is valid, but it's like that emotion and the emotional reaction that comes alongside the behaviour that has made you feel upset is just completely displaced by something so much bigger. And it kind of puts into perspective, you know, like, what matters. And I know this is, like, not groundbreaking information, and I'm not going to tell you anything that you don't know in this podcast, and I probably just sound like some fucking Instagram page that's, like, splurting waffle. But if you've had an experience like this, you'll understand what I'm talking about. Like, when there's, like, a severe threat to loss of life, or there is loss of life, if you've experienced that, it kind of just, you know, you just think about it in the sense of, like, none of that other stuff really matters. Like, it doesn't even come close to, like, how important life is. And, like, it's really strange to me as someone that really appreciates life anyway. Like, I really enjoy living, and, like, I enjoy the ups and downs of life and the highs and lows, and, like, I do really love being a human on the planet. I know this sounds really weird, but, like, I enjoy it. And it's like, having an experience like this makes me realise how, like, not feeble, that's not the right word, but fragile, maybe, that experience is. And, like, I do genuinely believe that, like, you know, we come on the earth for a set amount of time and our death date is planned. And, you know, like, I believe that. Even freak accidents, like, I believe if you're meant to die, you're meant to die, and that's just the way it goes. I do. I don't know why, I just do. And so, you know, I know it wasn't my mum's time yet, which is great. And it's, you know, she's not paralysed and she can walk and talk, and she doesn't, you know, her brain's fine. And, like, so, like, incredibly lucky that she's going to make, like, a full recovery. But it's just, like, you know, in like, the blink of an eye, it puts into perspective what actually matters to you, and, like, what is just a distraction. And it's so funny because, like, I didn't want this to sound vain or superficial or anything, but when I got home from the airport, I didn't shower for 2 days. I was in the same clothes that I wore to the airport for 2 days, because I'm, like, effectively a full-time carer at the minute. I don't care. It's, like, not a priority of mine to look good right now. My priority is to make sure that my mum is, like, you know, fed and watered, basically, and can, like, get around and, like, dress herself, and, like, you know, she comes first in this moment. And I looked at myself in the mirror, just, like, as I was passing by, and I thought, like, I look really pretty. And, like, I just thought to myself, like, I think this is, like, the best I've ever looked. And, like, I was thinking about it, and I was thinking, like, I don't know why, because, you know, I haven't washed my hair in, like, 3 days. I'm still in the same clothes. Like, I'm sleeping in these clothes. I'm not even taking off my socks. Like, I know this is not, like, clean girl vibes, but I don't care. Like, and I was looking at myself, and I was like, it's, like, the kindness that I am giving out, and, like, the way that I'm helping my mum that is making me prettier. Like, and I don't know how to explain it other than, like, you know, when you meet someone and they're just so kind, and you just think that they're, like, the most beautiful person, like, because of how, like, their behaviour. The only way I could explain it is, like, looking at myself. I saw myself, you know, as a complete servant to someone else. Like, not in, like, a weird, like, power dynamic way, but in, like, a, you know, like, obviously my whole life my mum has cared for me, and now the role has kind of switched. And I'd never felt more, like, assured of, like, my own, like, inner beauty, which is, like, really weird to say, because I do see beauty as, like, an external thing. Obviously everyone does, but I think for the first time I was able to recognise it within myself internally, and have that show externally, like, on, like, you know, I don't even know how to explain it. Like, it wasn't, like, something that I can describe in terms of features. It was just, like, a thing that I noticed, and, like, have continued to notice, is that, like, the struggle and like, you know, putting someone else first made me more. Like, I don't know more what, because, like, beauty isn't really the way to describe it. I'm not talking, like, physical. I don't know how to explain it. And if you've been through something similar, like, you might understand what I'm trying to say. Or, like, if you've been on the receiving end where, like, someone's looking after you, if you've been through an accident, you might notice changes in the person, like, you know. And I've been thinking, like, I've been going through a lot of, like, really weird, like, whenever anything happens to do with death, like, because of how I think, the way I see it is, because I've almost died a few times, I'm a bit, like, hooked into that dimension, or, like, whatever it is. So whenever anything like that happens around me, I'm like quite sensitive to those changes. And like I've noticed quite a lot of things that are happening that are like really weird around the house and around like, you know, me and things like that. And it's like, I don't know if anyone knows what shifting is, but I almost feel like there's been like a shift, and like I know a lot of people are talking about this at the minute in terms of like the crossover and everything that's going on like with the planets and blah 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 blah. It's not really relevant to this episode, but I just feel like almost like everyone at the minute is going through these hardships. Like pretty much everyone I know is struggling at the minute in one way or another. And I feel like it's like, you know, it was funny, like on holiday, everything kept going wrong. Like, so there were 6 of us, right? It was like me and my family. And literally like everything was going wrong. Like it was funny at first, obviously, until like the accident happened. But everything was going wrong. Like everything possible was going wrong. Every day there was like 3 or 4 things that would go wrong. And it wasn't anyone's fault. It wasn't like tangible things that were anyone's fault. It was just like things like, you know, food poisoning, or like there was like a mouse in the room. Like it's like funny things that are funny, but like it was just like, what is going on? Like all these things that we had to deal with, like constantly had to deal with all these different types of things. And obviously then the accident happened, and like 2 people were affected during that accident. And my aunt, she's like of a very similar mindset as me, and we were talking about it after I got back from the hospital, and she was saying like, you know, do you ever think that like these things happen to us to like see how we handle it and to prepare us and like, you know, level us up for something better? And like that's like a really core spiritual philosophy, is that you'll go through immense hardships before like something really, really good will happen to you, to like, I don't know, like test you or challenge you, or like see how you deal with difficult situations, to like prepare you and like see if you're ready for it almost. And like, I don't know, I see it that way. And I also think like seeing it that way gives comfort in a sense, because there's been so many times in my life like when I've gone through like really hard things and I've thought like, you know, I can't get through this, and then you do get through it, and like, you know, now those things are like fundamental to my growth, and like I will forever like lean on those things as periods of immense growth, even though they were incredibly difficult and not nice. Like it, you know, growth is not nice and it's not enjoyable, and like it's upsetting that sometimes people have to go through like life altering situations. But I think it goes back to that thing of like, you know, leveling up in a sense of like, we go through these things and you do come out the other end. Oh, I sound like such a fucking cliche. I don't want to be like, you come out stronger, because sometimes you don't. Like, I'm traumatized. I'm literally like a wreck. I'm so not okay in the slightest. But I know that like I'm, you know, gonna learn a lot from this, and it's gonna like, oh my god, hold on, sorry. I thought I saw someone that I knew. I'm literally just like parked up in my car on the way home. But yeah, no, I just like, I don't know, I don't really know where I'm going with this episode, to be honest. I just felt like I needed to talk. Like these podcasting for me is like a real form of therapy, I guess, and I don't know if that's like a good idea for me to like broadcast that externally to like the whole world, but I don't know, I just feel like I needed to hear this. Like I feel like quite often when I make a podcast, I'll listen to it back like a year later and be like, wow, like you're really onto something there, like I really needed to hear that. And like it was so funny, like I was looking up moral perfectionism the other day, and then I realised I actually have a podcast about moral perfectionism that I made like 2 years ago, and I haven't listened to it, but I just like remembered what I said, and then I was like, do you know what, like you're actually really smart. And I think it's like moments like that of like documentation of how I was feeling at certain points, or like, I don't know, I feel like I try and be as vulnerable as I can in these episodes, and like some people probably think it's a bit cringe, which is fine because that's not the target audience, but I feel like they really help me, and potentially maybe other people as well, to feel like understood, I think, in a way. Like, I feel, I don't know how this sounds, like I feel understood by listening to myself, but I feel like sometimes, like, you know, I'm able to validate myself through my own experiences, which is something that I've always really struggled to do, is like not seek validation externally and be able to give it to myself. And I know that's something that a lot of other people struggle with as well. And I think having like any kind of outlet, whether that's journaling or like, this is technically just like audio journaling, just like getting things out. Like, obviously therapy is a good one, but not everyone has access to that as a resource because it is expensive. But yeah, no, I think it's just like really important during these times to think about, you know, the good parts of what's going on. Like, it might sound selfish to think, you know, I'm noticing like my own inner worth in these times where like someone else is completely dependent on me. Like, it's not a task I expected to have at the age of 22, but it's something that now I feel has increased my sense of self-worth. And like, that's what I mean when I'm saying about these bad experiences shape us into good people, because someone that's never been through any hardship is never gonna have to grow. And like my aunt was saying, like, you know, you don't realize until you go through these things how resilient we are as humans. And I think that's really true. Like, if you look at like, I'm not sorry, but to make it political for a second, if you look at what these people are going through, like in, you know, all the wars across the whole world at the minute, all these people are in complete survival mode. And like, I can only imagine, like, you know, I was in and out of hospital for like 4 days, right? And I felt like I was in complete survival mode, and it wasn't even me that had been injured. And like, you can only imagine what it's like being on a battlefield with no arm, you know, there's no hospital around, there's no anaesthetic, there's nothing for you, you know, and the resilience that you exhibit in times like that, I think it puts things into perspective when you see the struggle that people go through, and then it sort of makes the things that you worried about before, I don't know, like there's like an artifice to them. It's like the ego just wanted you to worry about those things because although they were kind of painful, they weren't as painful as having to worry about where your next meal comes from, because we're lucky enough that we don't have to think about things like that, or worrying about not being able to tie your shoelaces because you've got a broken back and you can't bend over. You know, like things like that. Like, you know, you're worrying about the boy that hurt your feelings because he isn't replying to you, not, I don't know, the fact that you're like in stage 3 chemo. Like, these are good worries to have. And I think when you haven't been through, like, touch wood for me, like, it's been, I think, 2 years since my last like big accident. And it's something that I've had to, I don't know, maybe like I've like re-realized now, like, because I've had 2 years without accidents. And I'm not trying to say that you should have to go through like immense hardship to be grounded. That's not, I don't want people to experience that. You know, you should be able to ground yourself in other ways. And I really hope for you that you can, because I do not wish this upon anyone. But it's almost like, you know, I felt like over that time I was like coming more into the real world, if that makes sense. Like, I think I, as a person, like, my friend Daisy is like, we both kind of have a tendency to be a bit erratic together. Like, I don't know, a few screws loose in our sense of how we perceive things to be. And it's funny because I felt like for the past year or so, like, I don't know, like, I've been thinking, like, why do I feel so normal at the minute? I feel so like I fit in for a change. Like, I actually feel like, you know, I could live here, like. And I always thought when I was a kid that, like, an alien spaceship was gonna, like, just pick me up and take me away, and just I was gonna, like, live with the Lyrans or the Pleiadians for a while. Like, that was genuinely what I believed. Like, the man was gonna come and get me and take me to another planet. And for the last year, I've been thinking, like, you know, maybe I am just actually gonna live on Earth for the rest of my life. And I know, like, I'm literally 22 and I sound fucking delusional, but, like, some of the things that, like, I've experienced, like, me and Daisy have experienced together, like, like, I don't know, I just think, especially if you go through, like, near-death experiences, a lot of people that go through near-death experiences have incredibly spiritual experiences that follow after that or immediately. You know, a lot of people say they become detached from their body and they enter the astral if they go through an accident, or they have visions or see things or become psychic or whatever it is, I don't know. And I think it, like, ties you to this other part of something. I don't know. It's not really very tangible, but it is, like, it feels like home to me, like, if that makes any sense at all. And I feel like I was kind of, like, beginning to forget what that feeling felt like because I hadn't had an accident in so long. Like, I don't know why I'm so fucking accident prone. Like, and I know it's not me that's had the accident, but I think being on the receiving end of being, like, you know, watching an accident from someone that is, like, you know, she brought me into this world. Like, I came through her. So it's, like, shit, basically. But it's kind of, I don't know, like, put me back in that mind of, like, there's more, you know, like, there's so much more. Like, don't settle for the fucking shit 9 to 5 with a 23k salary. Like, that is not what I was put here to do, and I don't think that's what any of us were put here to do. And I am here telling you, you do not need an accident to have that realization. I've had the realization for you, even though it's an obvious realization, and, like, you're probably thinking, I've already fucking knew that. Shut up, you stupid bitch. But I just think, like, I don't know, like, if you are feeling stuck or lost or, like, weird, or, like, you fit in or don't fit in, I don't know. For me, like, feeling like I fitted in was, like, weirder. Like, I was like, oh, you know, like, I actually am, it's all working fine, which is weird for me. Usually, I don't know, I just, like, I'm not, like, a super, like, I'm a really lucky person, but, like, when it comes to, like, lived experiences, it's very, like, roller coaster vibes. Like, it's not just like, oh, I got cheated on and then, you know, like, my dog died. It's like a lot more intense than that. So I think, like, when I was having this, like, really, like, I don't know, like, down period, I was like, what the fuck is going on? But I think a lot of people have, like, very, very, like, intense lives and live, like, far more intense lives than me. And I think in the grand scheme of things, I literally live in a village and I work in a retirement home, so, like, it's not that interesting. Like, it's not, you know, I'm not, like, doing anything that's, like, groundbreaking as of yet. But I think sometimes, you know, a shake-up, as horrible as it is, can help you to, like, refocus. I don't know if refocus is the right word, but maybe just, like, think about things and think about values and morals and, you know, when your back's against the ropes. I think that's, like, the saying. I know that's, like, from an R. Kelly song, so sorry about that, because he's a prick. But I don't know, it's like, I don't know, I feel like there's a saying for it. It's like, you know, you find the strength when you need it. It's there, it's always going to be there. And it's like, the more you endure, the stronger you get, as much as, like, you come out of it fucking traumatized. And, like, I'm such an advocate for therapy because I don't know if I'm just like a bit of a loudmouth and I just like to talk about things, and like that helps me process, and some people it does not help them process at all. But yeah, I don't know. I think like if you're going through a bit of a shit time at the minute, just know that like it is making you a better person in the long run, as much as like I hate to say that and I sound like a cliche. Like, I think the older I'm getting, the more I'm realising that a lot of those, like, cliche, you know, old wives' tale type, like, not the cliches about fucking race and gender and stuff like that, not those cliches, but, like, the cliches about, like, you know, livelihood. They're actually real and they actually have a point, and most of them are quite useful. As much as I sound like a broken record, but I'm gonna stop talking now because I probably should go home and check on my mum and make sure she's okay. But thank you guys for listening. I've broken my phone, and like I had so many good episodes on my old phone, and they're gone. So yeah, that explains the hiatus. But hopefully I'm back now, and I'm not working at the minute, so I'll have loads of time to talk. If anyone wants to listen, that would be great. So thanks guys, and I'll see you soon.